So this is one of AMBESSA'S weaknesses. And by the way, it doesn't mean a good player is not going to be able to get around it. Obviously, I'm terrible. I'm playing against a Volibear main on PBE called Grizzly Rated. You know this guy probably has played 500 PBE Volibear games. But anyways, early laning, you don't have a lot of resilience. Like, yeah, you can dash around, but if you're taking damage, like, what are you gonna do? And so that's something that AMBESSA players will need to figure out how to, you know, deal with. It's like, you know, if you're set, you can heal back up, right? Stuff like Garen. AMBESSA, until she hits 6, doesn't really have any healing. So the early lane is definitely something where, against certain characters, I think you could definitely have a hard time. But again, I might just be terrible. Maybe her early lane is really, really good, and I'm just playing bad, because, you know, I've played her 2 times. So this is one of my thoughts about AMBESSA. I don't know if it's true. I have a feeling that AMBESSA is going to struggle against tankier characters that have any sort of sustain in lane. I could be totally off about that, but it feels like she would have a hard time against Set, Garen, Darius, Volibear, at least for the early laning phase. Because yeah, she could dash around, but like, what does she do in terms of putting damage on them and trading favorably? And again, I might just be bad. I don't know. Maybe she's god tier against them. Like, this is one of the things that, like, Garen can do to Riven sometimes. Like, Riven will be like, ooh, I'm going to dash around and shield and all this. And Garen is like, haha, Giga Chad, QE, dash around now, why don't you? And then once he gets damage on her, he's like, and now I heal. So here's one thing that's really powerful about Volibear into AMBESSA. You can stun her out of her dashes. And so Volibear, if he's in melee range of AMBESSA, she doesn't get to dash away. Because he'll Q her, and then your dash is gone. So that's like definitely a very powerful output that he has against her. Do you see her mid then? I don't know. Apparently she can jungle a bit too. There is an interesting thing about mid where a lot of top laners who are designed to go top lane just absolutely destroy mid lane. Because they can beat up like half the champions there. And so some of the best mid laners in the game are actually top laners. Like, YORICK mid is really good, Garen mid is really good, NASUS mid is really good, KLED mid, Zac mid, Singe mid. Like, there's a lot of top laners that are just actually like insane in terms of their mid lane effectiveness. Do you have any opinions on a summoner character? There's 2 problems with a summoner character in League of Legends. Okay? Doesn't mean we can't make them, but it's 3 very real problems with summoner characters in League of Legends, okay? Number 1, League of Legends control scheme is set up for single unit control. And so any sort of summoner character that expects you to control your units gets very awkward very fast. It's not like Dota where you can like deselect your champion. So that is one of the issues with the summoner character. The second issue with the summoner character is that summoner characters are not accommodated by our balance strategy. Very specifically, our balance strategy is fairly win rate focused, and one of the issues with summoner characters is, oh my god, one of the issues with summoner characters is that they tend to be high power, low satisfaction, because the second your damage is done by something that's other than you, it just doesn't feel as good. So characters like Malzahar, characters like YORICK, characters like Zyra, they tend to need to just sit at higher win rates to be satisfying, because a lot of their power is diffused into minions that feel like dots. And so that's like one of the challenges of a summoner character is how do you make them satisfying when all their damage is coming from these things that make life harder. The last issue with summoner characters that can be pretty rough is summoner characters take lots and lots of tech and lots of assets, which introduces them to very big sustainability problems, which again, doesn't mean you can't make them, but it does mean things like summoner characters will always get less skins. And it's not because we're lazy, it's just because summoner characters have way more assets, and so their skins are significantly more complex to make. And summoner characters risk having a lot of bugs basically all the time. Look at YORICK as an example, because minion AI and controls and things like that can be very buggy and things like that. So another concern with summoner characters is like we make a summoner character and it actually tends to be like significantly more difficult to maintain. And with all this said, it doesn't mean summoner characters are bad or we shouldn't do them. It's just like, I think like the conclusion would be the summoner character that we do, the idea really has to be worth it. Like it really has to prove itself as something very good that is worth making. Because of all the extra costs that come with making it. It's so disheartening to see the reaction to AMBESSA when the whole League community doesn't even know what she'll do and how well she'll do. So I'll say two things. Number one is, like, I think as a League player, it's always reasonably skeptical of new things. Like, we've definitely have had new things that can be pretty crazy, right? I get that. Totally get that. That said, I'll tell you this. This is something I've learned working on League Champs, but also watching Valorant as well. And that is, if there's a new character coming out that no one is worried about, that character probably doesn't do anything, or isn't very powerful, or isn't very effective. It's just kind of the idea that, like, if people look at that new champ and they're like, wow, good job, Riot, that new champ will never frustrate me ever, then I'm like, it's not that I think it's important for new champs to be frustrating, but I think it's important that new champs do powerful things that people recognize, right? And it's really easy to get into a spot where it's like, oh, no one sees anything strong, and so therefore they like applaud and say, good job, there's nothing strong that I will fail to. It's like, does that mean that character is just weak or bad or not powerful? And so I think like it's actually really important that like a lot of new characters have some hype to them. And again, it doesn't mean like do deliberately frustrating things or anything like that, but like if you've got a character and the people like look at it and they're like, yeah, it's chill, I see nothing here. It's like, yeah. It's kind of like it's like that meme where everybody's like raising their hands and it's like, who wants the new character? It's like, who wants everybody else's character to like not do anything crazy? And it's like, raise your hand. It's like, who wants your character to not do anything crazy? And like no one raises their hand, right? It's like, it's actually important that every character does its own crazy thing. Don't know why League players hate new stuff so much. I would argue that a lot of League players don't hate new stuff. I'd argue a lot of players love new stuff. Like, as an example, I'd say for a lot of competitive like multiplayer games that are like character based, like new characters in an example represent one of the lifebloods of the game. And like you can see like pretty rapidly like players like being kind of sad and being less engaged when like they're not seeing like new stuff at some frequency, right? Obviously there's a frequency that's too much, but like a lot of players like are just really excited when a new character comes out. And they're like, how's this going to change the game? Can I play it? Can my friends play it? Like, a lot of players don't necessarily like look at a new thing and be like, oh my god, I have to play against that. A lot of players, the way they look at new things is like, oh my god, I get to try that thing out.